Hello, Mr. Brady.
Hey, Christine.
My name is Christina, and I'm from Conrad. And I have a couple questions. You touched upon the debt and the amount of spending and, what our country is going toward, and it's the young people that are going to be stuck with that debt. And as one of those young people, and I have an 8-year-old and a 2-year-old, they're my young people. So I'm your young people, but they're my young people. And I'm looking at that generation. What measures and what efforts have you given to audit the Fed or encourage that? Because I know it's just gotten out of committee, and I don't believe you co-sponsored it yet. And you were one of only 4 or so representatives out of all of Texas that have failed to get on board with that. And also, I have one quick question, and forgive me for having to. But whenever the National Defense Authorization Act came to be, voted on, you voted yes, and I talked to your lawyers, and they've explained to me their side of it. But as a civil rights, person who's really strong on civil rights and really pays attention to that, there's a quiet, discord between the young people and our concern. Because let's say I'm on the internet and I go to a website, they could pick me up under suspicion if I didn't know what I was going to. I mean, there's a legitimate concern for the president having sole power to order the military to detain citizens under suspicion only, with no trial to the lawyer. You could even be shipped out of, country to Guantanamo Bay. And so that really concerns me, is just the direction that our civil rights, the civil rights have been violated by Obama for a while with his executive orders. And this is one that just, it seems like I really would have wanted you to stand up, kind of like Virginia and a few other states, to just repeal that unconstitutional part and say that we're not going to participate in that, we're not going to cooperate with any federal agencies in our state.
Okay. Start with the second one first, National Defense Authorization Act. I supported it both last year and this year, continue to support it strongly. If it included provisions that allowed any president or any government to detain a U.S. citizen without their full constitutional rights, I'd have been the first to vote no against it. But that's not what that bill did. And in fact, we made those authors read through to us the whole bill, both last year's and this year, including the provisions specifically to protect what you're worried about, put in that bill to make sure no citizen can be detained without full constitutional right, without a full jury trial, without immediate legal representation. All those safeguards are in that bill. The one amendment I voted against, and you need to know about, I voted against an amendment by Justin Lamont and Adam Smith in Washington that gave U.S. constitutional rights to foreign terrorists who are on our soil. I mean, they gave, in effect, if we'd have passed that amendment to that bill, we would have, by law, if Osama bin Laden had been caught on our soil, we'd have had to start with, you have the right to remain silent. And so, no, I voted absolutely against that amendment, and I voted for those, like Louis Gohmert from Texas, that reiterate again your very concern. The U.S. citizens should have no rights, civil rights, constitutional rights, any of those legal rights abridged by this law or any other. So I think I work hard to make sure that you and me and my kids are safe. On the first issue, Audit the Fed by Ron Paul, I think our Fed Federal Reserve has far exceeded its powers in a number of areas. And I think Congressman Paul's bill, Audit the Fed, is one step forward on it. We already audit the Fed financially in a number of ways. In fact, we can pick them up, those financial audits, every Thursday, frankly, you and I. He adds a couple of new audits financially to the Fed that I think are very helpful. It'll shine even more light on them. I think that's good. There's provision in the bill I don't think is necessarily a good way to go about auditing their decisions, where we sort of outsource it to the General Accounting Office. I'm not convinced that's a good way to do it. But we're going to hold a vote and pass the Audit the Fed bill out of the House in July. I don't believe I'm going to co-sponsor it, but I think 80% of that bill is a very good bill. But let me tell you what else I'm doing. As you know, we've introduced the Sound Dollar Act, completely reform the mandate of the Fed, to hold them accountable, to move them out of this economy, to do many of the things that Congressman Paul wants to achieve. I just take it a little different direction to get to that point, and we're continuing to work with his office and his subcommittee that he chairs on that issue. And so you just need to know we're leading the effort in Congress. And when Congressman Paul finishes his term, and he'll be missed, to make sure his efforts that the Fed doesn't monetize our debt, that it backs out of this economy, that it's held accountable. We want to make sure that legacy keeps going forward.